Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a short little knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the QSP Swordfish button lock, a fairly inexpensive and very well-made button lock knife from QSP. If you're not familiar with QSP, they make excellent folding knives for not a lot of money. Honestly, some of the best budget knives on earth are made by QSP. So I'll invite you to check out the description where I'll link QSP knives in general for you guys to take a look, as well as this knife and all of its different configurations. Thanks so much to QSP for sending this knife in. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Like I said, a few different configurations for this guy. They're all Wharncliffes as far as I understand, but you have a choice of stonewash blade. I think satin blade. There's a black, like a tumbled coated blade, and then a few different handle materials. So let's go ahead and measure it. I can't talk today. Overall length of the Swordfish coming in at 8 inches. Which is nice. A lot of the budget button lock knives that come out, I'd say it's at least 75% of them that are 7.5 inches or less, which is fine. That's a good size, but I'd like to see more full size. I consider 8 inches right there in the smack dab in the middle of full size. I'd like to see more full size budget knives for sure. 8 inches with a 3.5 inch blade and a 3.35 inch cutting edge. How about some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat? These are all tucked away today, sorry. Model 2, you can see they're definitely closer to the size of the Rat 1. Absolutely. How about up against the Demco AD 20.5? There we go. You know what? Let's put it up against some other budget button lock knives. The CJRB large pyrite and the standard pyrite. I would say this is right in between. Has more of the full-size-ness, right? More of the presence of the large pyrite without being quite as long. And then I think finally we'll do the Benchmade bug outs. That's probably a good one. And then let's do the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, which is a very similar size. How's the action? It's important on any knife, but you know, button locks have that fidget factor. So yeah, this is what you want it to do. You want to be able to push the button. You want it to drop freely into the closed position, but you want that plunge lock to create enough of a detent that the flip is satisfying and not kind of a weird, like, you know what I mean? When the plunge lock, because in this case, it doesn't use a detent ball. You're dependent on the plunge lock and how it's cut to escape in the closed position to create that you know, satisfying breakaway. So if it's too sloped, it's too mushy, then you get kind of a, you know, and you're not sure. You're like, wait, don't go yet. I didn't put all the power into it. You know, you want to be able to pull that, and you want to know that it's going to deploy every time, and it does. This is like less than 1% stick. I mean, it's like nothing. You push that button and it's going to fall, and that's what you want it to do, right? It does run on bearings, which I'm sure you guys can tell. And no matter how hard you push this button, it's going to just swing freely. So you don't have that, what I call plunge drag, where it kind of pinches it and gets stuck, and then you have to guess how much pressure to apply to the button. Maybe that's only an issue I have, but this doesn't have it. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. So thickness, just about got myself on the 80-20.5 there. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3, it's about the same. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. Where is that PM2? There it is. You can see here, because of the blade shape, it does have a little bit of height to it. In fact, the height is approaching the hump on the PM2 or Para 3, PM2 and Para 3. Lengthwise, it's longer than the Para 3, a little shorter than the PM2. I don't think it's going to be too much different than carrying these, or you know, a mix of these two in the pocket, really. What are we looking at for materials? In this case, we have a burlap micarta, which is not my favorite. Personally, one of my least favorite handle materials. It's definitely better than injection mold plastic, though. This feels like grandma's couch to me. This feels like, why didn't you get rid of this a long time ago, Grandma? I don't know. Nobody ever goes down to the basement and sits on it, so that's the freaking couch down there. You know, it doesn't make any sense to replace it, and you're like, ah, geez. And then you go down there to watch the game, and it's all scratchy. Right? Everybody knows. And the weird lamps are down there. The weird carpet. Yeah, it looks okay. I just don't like that it's so hairy, you know? They have other handle materials though, so that's the beauty of knives like this is you have choices, but it's okay. As far as burlap micarta goes, this is some of the least offensive stuff that I've seen. So yeah, it's when they mix like yellow and brown together, or not yellow and brown. It's like a pond scum green and like cedar wood brown. It's not very good looking. It's the color of old. It's just looks aged, you know. But not that that's always bad. It's just like a bad aged, right? Like nobody ever decided to paint it. Anyways, enough with the analogies. Materials. We have nested steel liners, which is nice. That's a real nice touch. They could have lipped those and they didn't. They nested them, which is cool. They are milled out for weight reduction. And then we have a beautifully tumbled 14C28N Wharncliffe blade. For those of you who don't know, 14C28N, while not everybody's favorite choice, it is certainly one of the very best budget steels you can get in this territory. And the reason is because of how well-rounded it is. It is stainless. It is fairly tough. It'll hold an okay edge, and it is very, very easy to touch up. It has a better all-around balance than many steels that exist. Obviously, if you don't need one element or another element, or you need one element more than another, then you might look for a different steel. But if you just are like, I just want something that's like pretty good at everything, yeah, for the money, 14C28N, it'll do that. Let's go ahead and weigh it. Where's the scale? There it is. Weight on the Swordfish button lock coming in at basically 4 ounces. Not bad. We have 3.5 inches of blade for 4 ounces of weight, so decent ratios there. Balance, I'm going to guess, is right where it should be because there's a lot of meat in that blade, and it is. It's right behind the pivot, basically right where you're going to have your index finger. Why is that important? It makes the knife not feel awkward, right? Some people don't care, some people do. Let's go ahead and measure. Just while I know where the calipers are, let's measure the blade stock thickness. I'm going to guess that this is 120 thousandths. It looks a little less, though. Yeah, it's actually about 115 thousandths. So a relatively thin blade stock there. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'm going to get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description. It talks about the tools I use on this channel. Periodically, people say, why don't you ever change things up? You should change up your intro. You should change up the part about your tools. You should change up your, this or that. No. I don't want to. The pivot is a T8. That's a T7. I mean, you feel free to ask, right? You could I'll tell you what. You can all get together 10,000 signatures on a petition. And I still won't do it. The body screws are going to be T6, which I wish QSP would use bigger body screws. They have a T8 for the pocket clip screw. I'm happy that you can mount it on either side. That's great. But QSP, I think you would, it's just quality of life. Less people are going to strip less screws. T8's better, period. It just is, right? I'll hear no arguments. T8 is better, but okay, minimal hardware. It's not really that big of a deal. Let's move on into the meat and potatoes here. There's really not a ton to talk about. This is a pretty straightforward design. In fact, if you didn't have this blade here and you looked at that and you're like, well, it's a QSP, there's a number of different blade shapes they could put on this, and it's fairly similar to a lot of models in their line. And that's true. QSP, I don't know, every now and then they take a risk, right? But they like to stay within certain parameters. This blade has definitely got a little more personality. It's a pretty aggressive Wharncliffe. And the nice thing about Wharncliffes is they look cool and they are super utilitarian. You've got a nice tip, got a nice straight edge, which is going to be easy to sharpen. And my favorite part is being able to do accurate draw cuts. Not everybody is like me, but I feel like I do draw cuts a lot with my knives. So I like the ability to, puncture and slice and all that. But man, if I'm trying to do an accurate draw cut, there's nothing better, than that classic utility. Why don't you just get a Husky or a Milwaukee Fastback? I'll tell you why, because that's incredibly boring. The answer is very, very simple. It's not because I, have to make up some, crazy scenario where this like really is justified over the obvious economic value of a Milwaukee fastback. It's because I think they're extremely lame and I want my knife to be cool. I don't need to pretend. That's basically it, right? And you get more blade, right? If you ever have to cut anything that is thicker than about an inch, you will actually need a longer blade. Now, that's not necessarily all the time. In fact, I think for the average person, it's pretty rare. But listen, guys, we don't have to make up. We don't have to make up anything. We don't have to pretend. We carry this stuff because we think it's cool. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, I've got like 180 knives. I can't sit here and pretend, right? The blade is beautiful. I maintain that QSP does one of the best. QSP and Kaiser do some of the best tumbled finishes on the market. Look at that. It's gorgeous, right? Nice flat, carrying out, I don't know, 70% the length of the blade. Big swedge up here. Looks good. It's a nice looking Wharncliffe. Says QSP on one side, 14C28N on the other. That's all it needs. The thumb studs, they work, right? You can do the reverse flick. You can do the thumb flick. The plunge lock is fairly heavy for a plunge lock. Normal, right? Compared to a medium D10 when we're talking about a ball, right? A D10 ball. Lefties, you're going to have a better experience with this because it's even easier to disengage the button lock with your index finger than it is your thumb. So I've always said right-handed button locks are actually easier to manipulate for left-handed people. Since there is no choke-up position on this knife and this is your only option for a hammer grip, you are not in any danger of disengaging that lock accidentally. A lot of times with designs that have forward choils, when you're squeezing on it, you could actually disengage that button lock, but not in this case. You don't really have to worry about it. So you can go ahead and mount that clip on the other side and just enjoy it basically the same way a right-handed person would. I think that's great. There's some jimping up here, which is nice. It extends out just a little bit. I like that. Thumb studs are slightly in the cutting path. Most of us cut at an angle though, right? So if you're cutting straight down with a Wharncliffe, then you might run into the studs. Honestly, the studs didn't have to be there, but I think I'm glad that they are, and I think a lot of people will appreciate that they are as well, right? Just gives you another option depending on what you're doing, whether or not you're wearing gloves, and of course your preference. We have a lanyard hole. Great for lanyard people. We have a backspacer, which I think is just G10. Yeah, weird. They didn't do more micarta. They just did a G10 backspacer. So, okay. It's a wire clip and it's okay. I really would prefer it went down and then slight swoop and ended like right there. That would have been just fine. But having it come up and then straight means that you kind of have to mash it into your pocket. And while it's not the hookiest clip ever, it can be a little grabby and the clip is made out of steel, so it might grab and bend out, but all right, not that big of a deal. It's certainly better than the Civivi clip that I always complain about. The carry depth is very deep, and that's fine, unless you hate deep carry clips, in which case it won't be fine. But in my opinion, it's fine. We have a stop pin that's located in its traditional position and plenty of shouldering there. QSP is rarely the culprit of poor manufacturing. QSP generally does a very good job, and this is, more of the same. Very easy disengagement of the button lock, no pivot lash. No blade play up, down, left, or right, which is great because it's a plunge lock, and we used to see that a lot more. Very smooth, very consistent in here, even without depressing the button. You push the button, it's just butter smooth, right? And then look at this. That's a nice detent for a button lock. It really does work. How about the centering? Is it on? Smack dab in the middle, it looks like to me. That's great. And then, boy, not even any pivot lash, or not even any detent lash off that plunge lock. Really good. It's a bigger button lock. I mean, it's not huge. It's 8 inches, right? Cue the Cold Steel guys coming in to tell everybody what a big knife really looks like. Great. You've been telling us for a long time. Thank you. Thanks. If you're new, right, and you're thinking, boy, these gents have no idea what a big knife looks like. We know. We're well aware of Cold Steel, and we're used to a certain type of person dropping in the comments to remind us, right? So don't be a cliche. Or do. That's fine. The comment section's down there. Do your worst. But yeah, for a full-size knife, this is going to be bigger for a lot of people. A lot of people, their EDC range is like 7 to 7.5 inches. This is going to be a little bit bigger, but not huge. The Wharncliffe is definitely a more aggressive looking blade. Despite the obvious utility, some people just don't prefer a Wharncliffe blade, and that's the only option you have here. If you like Wharncliffes and you like a little bit of a bigger knife and you like a button lock knife, boy, this is right up your alley, especially considering it comes in at $70, unless you pick some of the other variants, which are only $69 giggity. For some reason, they're exactly $1 less. I have absolutely no idea why, but I think that's a pretty good price, right? It doesn't blow me away. There are definitely other knives out there doing relatively the same thing for a little bit less, but it's a decent price and it's still under $75. And honestly, for the materials and the overall execution, I think that puts it in a pretty good spot. So I can put this on my cheap knives I like playlist because it is a budget knife by my own definition. And I'm also going to put it in my recommended knives playlist because I think it's a recommendable knife. It's just a good knife. Nothing new, nothing ultra special, right? Nothing that's destined to stand the test of time in terms of remembering unique designs or anything. But it's a good knife and it's got an okay price. So that's going to be pretty much it for me today, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Like I said, this will be linked down in the description. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.